Occasionally, the best technique to use is to multiply two expressions together within whatever you're working with here. So here are a couple examples where multiplying might be a good idea. Here's how I know that multiplying is a good idea on this first one. I've got a tangent and a secant playing together with pluses and minus signs between them. I notice that these two things that are here are conjugates, which means when I multiply them together, they're going to turn into a difference of squares. And I also know that there's an identity that relates tangent and secant if they're both squared. So I think if I multiply these together, something really nice is going to happen. So I do know that it's going to multiply into a difference of squares. So that means that's going to be tangent squared alpha. So the first term squared minus secant squared alpha, the second term squared. Now, there is that fundamental identity that relates tangent squared and secant squared. So there are two ways that I could go about this one. I think I'm going to take the one where I replace tangent squared with what it's equal to. Now, on my fundamental identities, it says 1 plus tangent squared equals secant squared. So if I wanted to make that say just tangent squared, I would have to subtract 1 from both sides. So that means tangent squared would be the same as secant squared of alpha minus 1. That's replacing my tangent squared of alpha. But then I still have the minus secant squared of alpha that was there originally. So now the parentheses that I put on there was just to show that the tangent squared was being replaced with that secant squared minus 1. But they're really not necessary, so I can kind of treat them like they're not there. Now, if I do treat them like they're not there, I see I've got a secant squared of alpha and then minus secant squared of alpha, which is going to cancel out. It makes a 0. So that leaves just a negative 1. So this one simplifies into just a negative 1. So there's no trig function there at all. Okay, now you try this second one here, that 7 minus 7 cosine of x times 7 plus 7 cosine of x, and answer the question on the Google form.